Hello guys, one very important, actually historic event took place on the 1st of January when Ukraine stopped the transit of the Russian gas. Thus, the era of Russian gas dominance in Europe ended. Most importantly, everything happened according to the contracts, giving enough time to our European partners to substitute Russian gas with gas from Norway, Qatar, the United States. This is the best decision a country can make, to be totally independent from Russian energy resources, because the Kremlin has always used them as an instrument of power, influence, or even blackmail. This is a great trouble for the collapsing Russian economy, fully dependent on the selling of resources. And this is another old Soviet project ruined by Putin himself. Actually, it took Soviet Union more than 50 years to develop the system of pipelines, which will no longer be used. So let's discuss what consequences this end of Russian gas transit through Ukraine means for Ukraine, Russia, Europe, and the world. My name is Anna, I'm from Ukraine, I'm in Ukraine, and if you want to see the defeat and demilitarization of Russia and also protect yourself against their evil narratives and hybrid warfare, subscribe. We discuss all of that on the channel. As a Ukrainian, I know how Russia uses its resources like gas and oil to blackmail countries, to set the standards or demands that it wants, promising and then, of course, violating these promises. Russia used and still uses gas and oil as an instrument to support specific parties, push some narratives, and it is always bad to be dependent on any of their energy resources. And when Russia attacked Ukraine in 2022, many countries would have stopped the transit. But Ukraine is a reliable partner, and we know that many of our European partners were dependent on Russian gas, though understanding already, even before the start of the full-scale war, that it's not the best decision. And we gave enough time for them to substitute Russian gas, and they have found other options like the one from Norway, the United States, which is actually good, taking into account that we need to remain close to each other and support each other, and Qatar. Russia always used gas as a weapon. And when they started constructing Nord Stream 2, lots of Ukrainian activists, politicians were shouting to the world, telling that they are doing it because they plan full-scale invasion, they plan the destruction of Ukraine, and politicians in Europe did not believe it was possible because of normalcy bias, because no one sane would start something like Putin. And Angela Merkel was one of the strongest voices to support Nord Stream 2. And it happened as we predicted. Days after the project finished, Russia attacked Ukraine with missiles ready to destroy all the country, just as Putin Medvedev still dream. And Ukraine kept fulfilling obligations and the transit of the Russian gas, understanding that stopping that would be a great problem for dozens of countries in Europe. And at the same time, seeing Russian violence, seeing how Russia uses lots of things as instruments of war or blackmail, the leaderships of European countries started looking for the substitution of the Russian gas. And it was not difficult, because there are many countries who produce gas and at the same time do not kill civilians, do not change prices or agreements based on the diagnosis of that dictator. And of course, it's much better to buy gas as a product, but not as a part of Russia's influence. Subscribe to see how the Kremlin collapses, how the ruble collapses, and please share these videos on your social media platforms because many people are still deceived by what Putin or his propagandists say. And during these years, 3 years of Russian full-scale war already, these countries have found a substitution for Russian gas. It's from Norway, it's from Qatar, it's from the United States, maybe some other countries will join. The countries that still have problems are Slovakia and to some extent Hungary, and I feel that Austria is trying to solve the problem. Well, because the head of Slovakia right now, Fico, is a totally pro-Russian politician. The majority of his speeches are based on the need of Russia's support, and it always comes together with the prices for the Russian gas. So it's not the Slovakia people who need Russian gas, it's Fico who needs Russian gas as an argument on his election campaigns, because I'm sure that the unity inside of the European Union can offer different options, and it will come to that. So some of these old school Soviet pro-communist politicians who fought for the idea of the need of Russian gas, or like the transit of Russian gas, but let's name it Azerbaijani gas, and so on. They tried all of that, but failed. And here I'm proud of the Ukrainian leadership, that we did not agree to imitate that, okay, let Russia use our pipelines. I am sorry, Russia is an enemy, and our task is to paralyze this enemy. And economy is one of the weakest parts of this dying empire. And by hitting it hard, we can actually defeat Russia faster than even with military operations. You know that after Gazprom bank was sanctioned, we observed a tremendous fall of the Russian ruble. Now they do all they know to freeze the inflation, to freeze this fall of the Russian ruble, but all of the steps are artificial and they cannot stay long. And with no transit of gas, with no possibility to sell gas to Germany, to France, to other countries, Russia loses revenue. And we all know it is not an innovative or competitive economy. It is an economy purely dependent on selling of the natural resources, which actually do not belong to Moscow itself, but are the People's Republic that one day will become independent. What is interesting, Putin often speaks about the need to revive the monstrous Soviet Union. He was the one to call the collapse of the USSR the greatest geopolitical catastrophe, and many of his bloody decisions are based on this desire to restore the prison of peoples, as many citizens of the USSR actually called it. But with his stupid actions, he actually ruins any heritage of the Soviet Union, because it took 50 years to construct the pipelines and to develop the dependence of Europe on Russian gas. More than 35% of gas consumed in the European Union was of the Russian origin, but not anymore, and all because of the great economic and military leader. My tongue cannot produce leader when talking about Putin. And of course, it was all sarcasm. You know, he's the greatest commander-in-chief, he's the greatest economist, and I am sure we will see more of great mistakes made by him under this pressure. And don't be afraid of Oreshnik, don't be afraid of the collapse of the Russian Federation, because Russia is more vulnerable, and it will collapse so quickly and so unpredictably that you won't have time to get frightened. And here in Ukraine, we know that this process has already started. So I am happy that on the 1st of January 2025, we have ended the transit of Russian gas. I am proud that we did that according to the contracts, respecting not the Russian side, but our partners in Europe, and giving them 3 years to substitute Russian gas. Most importantly, it's not just their need to substitute it for the sake of Ukraine. It is good for the sake of your countries, because Russia has always used all of its energy resources as instrument against you and against us. Actually, gas prices was one of the reasons why they made Ukraine accept Russian Black Sea Navy in the Crimea, and then it helped to annex us. So the fact that you're not dependent on Russian gas means they won't be able to turn it off just because Putin's in a bad mood or he thinks that Berlin must belong to Russia. So congratulations to you and congratulations to us, and let us watch the Russian economy collapsing, because it is already happening. Join me on X, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Discord. Let me know if you are free tomorrow for a live conversation. I've missed you, and it is still this holiday season, so maybe we can have some tea together or wine, whatever you prefer. Let me know in the comments below. Traditionally 9 p.m. Kyiv time. Are you available? Thank you for buying me coffees, becoming my patrons and sponsors of the channel. Check our merch shop for lots of good items that work well as reminders and conversation starters about Ukraine. And most importantly, thank you for standing with Ukraine. Together we will win. Slava Ukraini!